Hey everyone, it's Matt Dietrich here, youth coach with the Portland Trail Blazers, as well as the head coach of the 8th grade Lake Ridge boys basketball team. Really excited. I've been coaching for 8 years, and I've always talked about doing a coaching podcast or a video log or something like that. And today is video log number 1. So you are here for that, and I cannot thank you enough for being here for that. I have my coffee here. Got my morning oatmeal, so hopefully you do too, and we'll settle in. I won't try and eat too much in your face. But I want to talk to you about some adversity that we all experience in coaching. As part of my role with the youth coaching staff of the Trailblazers, I get to go out and present different coaching clinics to youth coaches all over Oregon and Southwest Washington. In fact, last weekend we were just up in Tumwater, Washington. And, I find themes over and over again at these coaching clinics when it comes to adversity that we face as coaches. And really, there are 5 major themes. That first one always seems to center around the culture of the game. It's become so toxic. AAU basketball is something that I grew up in, and in that, that from 2000 to 2010 period, AAU basketball just blew up, and it became a real kind of a fertilization ground for the ego that some of our players get, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But it's also the ego of the coaching staff. It's the ego of whatever representatives are a part of that team. Even the referees, and we'll talk about our referees later, they have egos, and so even the tournament directors, it just keeps building and building because it's really a profitable machine. I mean, we see entry fees of $10 per day nowadays. I mean, back when I was there, it was $5. So in just 20 years, the costs have increased to play basketball at the highest level, as well as just watch basketball, amateur basketball at the highest level. And so all of that has mixed together to form this toxic atmosphere of win at all costs. And it's really a sad part of youth sports, especially when the vast majority of our athletes are going to be recreational, and they really won't have a chance to play even past high school basketball. So culture of the game is a big one. As a coach, how do we coach through that? Really important in all of these things. You got to think about, as a coach, how do I model the way I want to coach through adversity? In culture of the game, there's plenty of opportunities throughout one game or one practice where you can call that out and say, that's not what we do as our team or as our organization, especially if you're that director of an organization. Make it clear in your mission statement that we are not about the toxic culture of the game, and then go through with that with your everyday actions, and make sure you specifically point out positive things that your kids do to reflect your values, and ultimately going to go against the grain of this normalcy of this toxic atmosphere and culture of the game. Another big adversity, something that always comes up for coaches, are parents. Right? When we coach youth athletes, we get to deal with those parents, and you got to be ready for it. And is that parent going to be a friend, or is that parent going to be a foe? And I'll tell you the worst thing, it sometimes can be both. With one parent, one day you're going to get the friend who's going to throw their arm around you and thank you for coaching up their son or daughter, and then on the other side, you're going to get the foe, where if you have to schedule that late practice, they'll rant about it on Facebook, and you'll see it, and you just said, well, yesterday you just gave me a big hug, and tell me how much you appreciated me. So parents, as coaches, we have to be ready for every conversation that we're going to have with a parent. It could come after, before practices, games. It could come if you run into them in the community while you're out at the grocery store or playing pickup basketball. You never know where you're going to run into a parent. So it's always important to bring that level of professionalism as a coach, even as a youth coach, some level of professionalism with your interaction between parents. Don't always expect it back from parents, because they might be coming from a space where they're angry because maybe their son or daughter didn't play enough minutes in the last game, or maybe they just had a bad day, and they might be coming to you wanting to vent some of their frustrations. So as a coach, making sure that we recognize that they are people, and they might be coming from a different perspective that we're coming from, much like the players that we're going to work with on a daily basis. Bringing that level of professionalism and understanding that this might just be a moment for them, especially when they come to you with either an argument or some disgust with the program or the coaching staff, or even maybe the facility that you are playing in. Bring that level of professionalism and help kind of smooth them out to understand that, hey, it's about working your son or daughter through this basketball season and learning those life skills, and keep going back to, it's not all about basketball, making sure that we're building the best citizens, because ultimately that's what parents want to see of their kids. Yes, they want to see them succeed on the basketball court, but it's really more important about equipping these kids with skills that they can use their entire life, beyond the basketball court. Next thing coming up, and this will also segue into coaching players with trauma. We talked about players that get egos. We talked about players that might even have parents that are very vocal in whatever it is discussed or happening throughout the game, whatever it is, those parents might be affecting those kids. So there's academic trauma. Maybe they're failing a class, or maybe even their friendships. Maybe they had something going on where their best friend might have kissed their girlfriend. As kids, things happen like that. So how do we coach these players through those situations? And connecting with our players and filling their emotional tanks is the number one way that we can do that. I'm a positive coach with the Positive Coaching Alliance, and I truly believe in the 5-to-1 positives to corrections or criticism or coaching moments is a fantastic ratio to try and achieve. I think John Wooden was once proven that 70% of the words coming out of his mouth were positive. It's so easy for us to want to be negative, especially when our players are giving us those negative emotions back to us. They're headbutting us on everything that we're asking them to do. So establishing that connection and filling their emotional tanks, something so simple as before practice, make it a point to talk to every player and ask them one thing that they did that day, or maybe one thing they're looking forward to throughout the week. If it's a Monday practice, do they have a big presentation coming up in school, or do they have something going on where they can really feel that excitement? Just a little smile on their face is going to help turn their entire outlook on that practice around, or that game, or any situation, even if it's a skills training. Also recognizing that players with trauma might not be approachable, and they might not want to feel it today, and for some reason their parents just brought us to them to us that day, despite it all. Coaches, this is not your time to give criticism. This is where you need to put your coaching ego aside and put your friend hat on and say, hey man, I recognize, or hey, young lady, I recognize that you're having a bad day. We're going to do whatever we can to make this fun for you. Don't expect a whole lot of pressure on me. All I ask is that if you've shown up, you already did that, you're here. If you can give your best effort, you're going to get nothing but support out of me. And making it clear that as a coach, that player is getting support, not just players that have had trauma, but players that are coming to you with a fantastic day. They need to feel supported and connected with you. You can also establish connections on your team with all of the players. That's just going to help that player want to be coachable, because ultimately we want to coach coachable players. Fourth thing that I got it's a huge adversity when coaching is our referees. Coaches, this is another point where you can kind of put your ego to the side. Our referees are dropping out of refereeing the games faster than our youth athletes are dropping out of sports. And it's crazy that is the case. But think about it. You're showing up for a job that you get paid about 15, maybe $20 an hour to do. Your players that you're reffing hate you. The coaches that are coaching in the games that you're reffing hate you. And at least 50 fans also hate you and are all quick to point out when something is wrong. Coaches, this doesn't apply to just the referees too. This is our scoreboard operators. This is our statisticians keeping the sheets. This is every part of youth basketball that if it's not there, it ain't happening. Coaches, you don't want to have to go out there and ref these games. That's why you're the coach. That's why I coach. I've refed one game in my life, and I will never ref again. That's a story for another time. But it's just a simple point in fact that referees are dropping out of our game. So why do we look at it through the lens of this referee is trying to put me down or trying to put my team down? Why do we consistently allow our parents to berate these refs when it has no beneficial impact on my team or how that ref is going to ref my team? Why do we allow this to continue to happen? We as coaches, we can do something, and it's quick, and you don't even have to say a word. When it starts to happen, the first time it starts to happen in the first game, coaches, we can call timeout. We can call timeout. We can walk to the middle of the floor, and we can look at those parents. Look at those parents. That's it. They will understand. If you have a problem, then you need to talk to them after the game about it. And you need to do it with a smile and that same level of professionalism that we talked about before about making parents our friends. You need to clearly state to them that, hey, you berating the official does not help our cause for the team. 2, it is also very that is just not what you want to do to be a role model for the kids that are playing in this game. Unfortunately, they hear you, they see you, even though as a coach we don't want them to. They do. And so that's a terrible role model for any young athlete that's experiencing that, that's there to experience that. And then finally, it's ruining our game. Our game needs to be about the players. It's not about the parents yelling at the refs. Let the guys do their own job. That's what they're there to do. And your game would not happen. I'm sorry, Mrs. or Mr. Smith. Your son's basketball game would not happen without them. So can we please try and encourage our players rather than berate the refs? Think about it. Finally, the last thing that as a coach and as any type of role that you're in, you always will face this. It's, do you have enough support? Coaching is a lonely road. It is, coaches, because sometimes you have to make that call, and that call might end up in a loss, and you might not feel supported after a loss. And if you have a losing season, you might feel like no one supports you. And let me tell you, coaches, it cannot be further from the truth, because if we've addressed the culture in the game, if we've addressed making sure the parents of the youth athletes that we're coaching are on our side, if we coach our players well and connect with them on an emotional level and understand that it's about them, it's not about me coaching them, I want you to get better, and we can coach them through any adversity that they have. And if we make our game better by not berating officials and by not berating the people that put on these tournaments, then it's all going to help you feel supported. You'll feel supported by your players, supported by your parents, supported by the people you see every time you show up to the gym, because you're doing it right, coach. If you can get through these 5 things that we talked about, these 5 areas of adversity that are going to face every coach every day in and out, you will feel supported, and ultimately at the end of the day, you will feel a level of success, no matter what the outcome of the game is, that you are making a positive impact on the 8, 9, 10, 12 kids that you're coaching. So, Coach, I want to give you this last piece of advice. The most important play is always the next play, so make sure you continue to learn, keep finding something new that will help you as a coach. If you want to connect with me, you can always shoot me an email, coachmattdietrich@gmail.com. And you can also find me on Instagram @coachmattdietrich. Hope this was helpful. Have a great day.